My name is Tom King. I may be a nerd, and I'm at Comics Online.
I'm Mitch Gerads. Tom is definitely a nerd, and we're at Comics Online.
Saturday at Comic-Con. I believe you're Tom King.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
And we're at the top of the DC booth.
That was close.
You have a very dark year one Batman story, very twisted Joker. Where did the idea for the silent film aesthetic come from for this story?
Yeah, it's as I was developing my look for the Joker and kind of the nebulous time period we're using and referencing back to the original 1940 story, I just got this idea in my head, because originally we were just going to have the black panels with the same font we've used in Sheriff and Mr. Miracle and kind of our branded black panel white lettering. But then as I started getting into it, but like I started seeing it as like a DC animated movie. So let's say Joker's running through a house and he's stabbing people and there's chaos and people screaming and stuff. Then all of a sudden all the sound cuts out and you just get this jangly piano music and a silent film panel that's scratchy, and then back to chaos and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's such a cool, like, chaotic auditory visual thing that can I make that work in a flat comic page? And so that's what we tried to do.
It's jarring.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful to be taken out of the standard comic book, we'll say narrative and just, the approach, but having that be Joker's only dialogue, I think made such a wonderful difference for the special, first outing, and of course continuing on to the second issue.
Yeah.
Can you talk about just, I guess, framing this story? Why did you guys want to focus on a Batman Year One story for Batman Brave and the Bold to launch this series?
I mean, the idea from the very beginnings, or the impetus of the whole thing, was we challenged ourselves to see if we could make a story that was scary. Like, comics are great and they're wonderful, and there's a brilliant, wonderful horror comics that I read, but none of them really scare me. They disgust me sometimes, and they're gross. And the guy sticking his finger through his eye to scratch it, like. But I like, in terms of that feeling of like when you're watching The Conjuring and you're like, I can't like close my eyes or open them at the same time, like that feeling. I wasn't getting from, and I was like, can we do that in a comic book? Can we create something that's genuinely frightening? I'm not saying we did, but I'm saying that was our impetus to try. And if you're telling a Joker story that's scary, telling one in the beginning when Batman kind of doesn't know, when he's unfamiliar, when he, we have a scene where he's just walking through a fair,
Carnival,
carnival's licking on a lollipop, and he can't do that a few years later. But in his beginning, when nobody knows who he is, and he's just a guy in a clown mask, that's possible. So yeah, that was the impetus to put him in a thing where like a Joker jumping out wasn't familiar to Batman, but was something actually frightening.
There's a shot in the first issue that I loved, and I know we actually messaged on social media about this one, the Batman shot at the train tracks, of just the full page shot of him. It felt iconic. Can you talk about maybe the inspiration for bringing that piece to life?
Yeah, are you talking about the one where he kicks the guy in the face? Okay. Yeah, I mean,
curbing or something.
yeah, I think so.
Curb stomping.
Curb stomping. Yeah, it was that whole scene culminating in that final part. It was just our way of showing like this is that early Batman who, like, for lack of a better term, doesn't just give a. I don't want to swear
He's
on your podcast.
He's not a nice man.
Yeah.
It's Batman before Robin. I always felt like growing up. I the first Batman comic I ever read was Death in a Family, where the thesis of that book was him saying to Batman, if you don't have a Robin, you become an evil person. Like, you need a balance, and so the idea of setting it in Year One is this is the Batman before Robin. This is when he's all shadow, no light.
And he's young. He's a bit angrier, just kind of getting into it. And in the third part, we have kind of that relationship more with Alfred and this younger, angrier Bruce, and how that relationship kind of builds in the future.
There's another moment in the second issue that I also really appreciated when essentially he sets up the other guy to do the subtle, I'm going to go do this thing, don't stop me, don't try to talk me out of it, but of course just trying to manipulate him into doing it so that he can act on it. I just thought it was a brilliant approach to it, and something we haven't really seen him spin in that way as Batman, just to use Bruce Wayne in that capacity to set up essentially the
I
gimmick.
love that scene because he's going through the Batcave, taking off his gear and everything, and Alfred's grabbing it from him. But the whole time it's Bruce Wayne doing like bro talk,
Yeah,
and like you just never seen that, and like you get to visually see it's all an act, but just to hear Bruce Wayne have all this like, bro, you should do this, bro.
My favorite line, I did 2 years of golf in prep school. I was a bit of a jock, man.
Well,
Because you know Bruce Wayne did some golfing in his little prep school.
I mean, he had
City.
to. I mean, at the very least, he had to be prepared for any golf-related supervillains that were in his future.
True.
But I know we're taking a break from your story for issue 3 of Batman Brave and the Bold. Is this first story arc 4 components or
4 parts, 24 pages each.
They'll be spread out kind of.
They'll
through
be
the
spread
issues.
out. The art has taken me a while. I've really been putting, kind of like Riddler took me a while. I feel so much love for these stories, and so they feel important to me, and so I've been putting everything into it, and it's taking me longer than me or DC would like. But they're coming out, and issue 3 is almost done, and it looks amazing. Or not issue 3, but part 3. And so when it's done, though, we'll have this 96-page ultimate Batman Joker story that I get to put on a shelf and love, and hopefully other people will love it too.
There's a lot to love, and again, I know we've had some dialogue back and forth, but this is how anthology stories should be done, and you guys like set the gold standard with this first issue right out the gate. But each one so far, I've already read the 3rd issue, like just seeing what the team is building towards. It's fun to see these different takes, but also, I mean, I know we have so much continuity, and it's so easy to get sucked into that having a step away for a minute for more of a character piece, when it's executed like this, it makes a world of difference.
Same with the Riddler book and Brave and the Bold. I approached both stories as like, this is core Batman, so there's not a lot of secondary family characters. It's, I always tell Tom I want to tell stories about Bruce, Alfred, and Gordon. That's to me, it's distilling everything down to like the animated series did. And what's nice about that too is that it works in continuity, because that's how we know, especially if you do like a year 1 where you don't have to play with everything that's happened. But yeah, it's just kind of distilling these things back to their core.
We do have to talk Wonder Woman a little bit.
Love it.
What a wonderful introduction for Trinity, for John, for Damian to all come together. But I mean, the pages in this book, I don't think you could have done a better job for that introduction. I can't wait to see what you guys are doing. Obviously, we're a few months away from Wonder Woman #1, but what excites you about taking on her and her world?
I don't know if excites is the right word. Scares is probably the right word. Yeah, no, this is a big swing. It's putting up a bat, but we've won some awards. We've done well. We've sold some comics, and this was the chance to get off the bench and be in the starting 5. And it's like, that's kind of, you have to do it, right? Like, you have to show that you're willing to play. Did
you ask to take on Wonder Woman, or was it brought to you?
The opportunity was there, and they're like, "Are you interested?" I always ask for Superman, and I never get it. I'm like Snape in Harry Potter, just like another year. I got another teacher. Oh, come on! So but then Wonder Woman showed free. And I was honestly really hesitant. I think that character is. I've written her before a few times, and it's hard. It's hard to get her voice right. It's you have a lot of choices. Does she have an accent? Does she not have an accent? She's an icon. There's a contradiction in her that she's a warrior, but she's also loves peace and like all this stuff. And her origins has been messed up and redone. And most of my books, my kind of play is always to go back to the beginning. Like with Supergirl, back to the beginning, Mr. Miracle, back to the beginning. When you go Wonder Woman, you can't quite go back to the beginning because the beginning is a little weird and it's good because it's iconoclastic and wonderful, but it's also a little bizarre and doesn't quite translate from 1940 to today.
Well,
so all of that stuff made it a big challenge.
With Trinity also, it's a very interesting approach because obviously John Kent, we got to see him as a baby, even though there were time jumps. Damian, we saw him, younger. but we've seen his evolution, and now we're sort of being thrust into, we'll say, teenager era, or you can say how old Trinity is or not.
She's about 19 in the first
Okay.
one, yeah.
So it's just different for readers to be jumping into this character, and here's your introduction. We'll come back and explain the context, but did that make it a little bit easier for the introduction, or was it even more daunting because of that?
I mean, the whole story from the very beginning was the idea that we would be introducing a daughter of Wonder Woman, but not the way we had introduced it with Damian, where she was Batman was absent from his life, and not the way we would do with John, where there were so many time jumps and multiverses, and so we wanted to start with what it is to have a child, what it is to have a baby, have a child, for Wonder Woman. But we had the opportunity to kind of do a flash forward and see where this is going, and to create this character and give her a name and a personality. And actually, it originated with Mitch. It's really his fault. I stole the story idea from him. We were thinking of doing a little Mr. Miracle follow-up short story, which we still might do. And he's like, I'd love to do a thing where Damian and John are babysitting little Jacob. And I was like, that's a great idea. But shouldn't they babysit, like, little Wonder Woman? Like, isn't that the missing piece?
Sure.
And so I stole that. And the idea of these three people, and it not being super sons, but being, what it is, a trinity, a triad, a delta, whatever. That's the core of the DCU. It's Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. So I always feel like you're looking at Jonathan and you're looking at Damian, somebody's missing. And so we're filling that gap with Trinity. But the story of Wonder Woman, the story of Wonder Woman #1, is Trinity has not been born yet. And so we're watching the story of her birth, the mystery of all that stuff of who she is and where she comes from and what she is and what her meaning is. So all that stuff was hinted at 800, but that's the huge, as many issues as we can tell, that Daniel and I can tell, to bring that to life. That's how big it is. Trinity's just the beginning of it.
Can't wait for more. Guys, you're doing some wonderful work.
It's beautiful.
Congratulations. Please keep doing what you're doing, because this is great stuff.
Thank you.
So stay tuned for more DC coverage at Comics Online.